on that issue. It is 100%.
No. Do not boo. This is the view. We accept we don't have to believe everything people say, but you cannot boo people here, please.
You think Disney is the radical left?
Well, I'm talking about...
No, but do you think Disney's radical left?
That this is the nation that can become more perfect. And what I am concerned about...
fixing the structures and the systemic racism that is embedded in
the fact of the matter is that we don't have to agree. We don't have to agree on the definition of systemic...
Go up and tell him. Yeah. Go tell him.
Tell him from the mountain.
We have to go to commercial. We'll come down. You're going to stick around. You'll stick around.
I think y'all have commercial break.
When a U.S. senator steps onto The View, you expect sparks. But what happened when Tim Scott joined the show? It wasn't just sparks. It was a full-blown firestorm. Accusations of racism, claims of systemic hypocrisy, and a heated debate that left the audience speechless. So, what exactly did Tim Scott say that had The View hosts scrambling? And why did it expose so much hypocrisy in the process? Let's dive into this explosive confrontation that has everyone talking. Senator Tim Scott made waves recently when he appeared on The View. The first black senator from the South since Reconstruction, Scott has long been a vocal critic of identity politics and systemic victimhood narratives. But from the moment he sat down, it was clear. This wasn't going to be an ordinary interview. Ana Navarro wasted no time diving into a fiery question about Disney's supposed political agenda, while Whoopi Goldberg made her opinions on systemic racism abundantly clear. And then came the real kicker. "You've said your life disproves leftist lies," Sunny Hostin declared. "But aren't you just the exception, not the rule?" Scott didn't flinch. In fact, he leaned into the moment. "That's a dangerous, offensive, and disgusting message," he fired back. "To suggest that the only way a young African-American kid can succeed is by being an exception? That is simply not true." The tension in the room was palpable as Scott rattled off a series of undeniable facts. The first black president, the first black vice president, African-American unemployment at historic lows under his party's leadership. The audience was silent, except for a few gasps. But Sunny wasn't done. She tried to pivot, asking for Scott's definition of systemic racism. And that's when the gloves came off. Scott didn't sugarcoat his response. "I'm here because of comments made on this show," he said. "To claim that systemic racism defines this country is to ignore the incredible progress we've made. My very existence disproves that narrative." He detailed his own journey, from being raised by a single mother to becoming a U.S. senator, and pointed out the hypocrisy in The View's narrative. "Why is it," Scott asked, "that my success is seen as an anomaly? Shouldn't it be celebrated as proof of what's possible in America?" The response? Silence. But it didn't last long.
You are the first black senator elected in the South since the Reconstruction. That would be about 114 years. Yet you say that your life disproves leftist lies. And
Yes.
My question to you is, I'm the exception, right? You're the exception. Maybe even Miss Whoopi Goldberg is the exception.
Oh, she's definitely the exception.
But we are not the rule. And so when it comes to racial inequality, it persists in 5 core aspects of life in the U.S. Economics, education, healthcare, criminal justice, and housing. At nearly every turn, these achievements were fought, threatened, and erased, most often by white violence. You have indicated that you don't believe in systemic racism. What is your definition of systemic racism?
Let me answer the question that you've answered.
Or does it even exist in your mind?
Let me answer the question this way. One of the things I think about, and one of the reasons why I'm on the show, is because of the comments that were made, frankly, on this show, that the only way for a young African-American kid to be successful in this country is to be the exception and not the rule. That is a dangerous, offensive, disgusting message to send to our young people today, that the only way to succeed is by being the exception. I will tell you that if my life is the exception, I can't imagine.
But it is.
But it's not, actually. It's
been 114 years.
Yeah, so the fact of the matter is we've had an African-American president, African-American vice president. We've had 2 African-Americans to be secretaries of the state. There was about 15% employment in the African-American community for the first time in the history of the country. It's under 5%.
40% homelessness.
And 50%
of African-Americans,
50% of the folks in our community.
Yet 13% of the population.
As Scott continued to dismantle their arguments, the hosts became visibly uncomfortable. At one point, Anna Navarro interrupted him mid-sentence, only for Scott to calmly ask, "Can I finish?" The back and forth grew so intense that the producers had to cut to a commercial break, conveniently shutting down Scott's rebuttal. Critics have since pointed out how often The View resorts to such tactics when their narratives are challenged. As one commentator put it, "When you can't tell someone to shut up, just cut to a commercial."
The truth of the matter is that when you look at progress in the Senate, especially from the Republican side, African-American chiefs of staff on the Republican side, the only African-American female chief of staff was mine. The current only Hispanic chief of staff, who happens to be female, is mine. When you look at the fact that when I helped to rewrite the tax code in 2017, I focused on my growing up experience, which was a single mother. I cut her taxes. Single mothers like mine, average income around $40,000 by 73%.
But you only one black senator out of 50.
We're talking about progress. I believe that education is the closest thing to magic in America. So I'm about making sure that our kids have as many opportunities to succeed as possible. It's one of the reasons why.
I need an opportunity to succeed because I have to go to. They're begging.
We have more time, though.
They're begging. You're coming.
I'm just getting started.
I know.
I believe all people can see the success.
Notably absent from this episode was Joy Behar, who has a history of controversial remarks about Tim Scott. After one of Scott's earlier speeches, Behar criticized him for claiming America wasn't a racist country, calling his perspective disappointing, and accusing him of ignoring systemic racism. Scott addressed Behar's comments during a later appearance, pointing out the irony of being lectured on racism by someone who once appeared in blackface. "Nothing like a white woman schooling a black man on systemic racism," Scott quipped. Scott's appearance wasn't just about rebutting The View's hosts. It was about addressing a much larger issue. "Our nation isn't perfect," Scott admitted, "but we are the greatest country on earth. And instead of focusing on division, we should be celebrating what unites us." Scott argued that the progressive left wants to rewrite America's story to fit their narrative, ignoring the undeniable progress the country has made. His call to action: "Let's focus on solutions, not blame. Conservatism works, whether you're rich, poor, black, or white." Scott's appearance has sparked heated debates across social media, with supporters praising his courage and detractors accusing him of denying systemic issues. Many viewers noted how the hosts struggled to counter Scott's arguments, resorting to interruptions and dismissive tactics.
Joy Behar went into full rant mode on Senator Tim Scott after his Republican response speech did not please Her Highness of bad daytime television. Nothing like a white woman schooling a black man on racism.
Tim Scott, he does not seem to understand, and a lot of them don't seem to understand, the difference between a racist country and a systemic racism. They don't seem to get the difference. Yes, maybe it's not a racist country. Maybe Americans, the majority, are not racist. But we live in a country with systemic racism. We discussed it this week again already.
I was disappointed that he said America is not a racist country without also talking about the systemic racism that is plaguing this country. I mean, why was he chosen to give this rebuttal? He was chosen because he is the only black Republican senator.
Is that not playing the race card?
Sure. Absolutely, Sean. The Democrat Party and the progressive left, they are stuck in Jim Crow 1920s and 30s. What they do not want is a black man who thinks for himself. You can be anything in America if you're black, except for conservative. That's why Sonny is so radical and so disgusting with her comments. They do not want my life story to be told because it disrupts the lies of the radical left. I can't think of anything more disgusting and more disheartening to watch the Democratic Party descend down into the 1920s.
You know,
unbelievable
treatment. And you're right. If you're African American and you are conservative, God help you. It's like open season. They can say and do whatever they want. No consequences. No wokeness exists.
Not at all.
You know, just unload insult after insult. I think you might have to go back on The View and kick their ass again.
Time to go back there and kick their behind. I like that, Sean. Good word. Good word.
All right.
I'll bring your audience with me. That's what we need to do. Take your audience to The View. Let's do it together.
You give us the date. I'll have everybody waiting outside to go in and let's just say, give a nice little applause for joyless Behar. That'll be a great moment.
Joyless blackface Behar.
All right, so you did go on The View. That worked out, I thought, very well for you. It was amazing. Joy didn't want to show up that day, did she?
Well, she took the day off because, listen, when you say something offensive and disgusting, you should be called out in person, live, yes, and in color. And so I went on The View and had a serious conversation about the greatness of America. We should all be proud to be Americans, and I can't for the life of me understand why the radical left wants a different country. This is the greatest nation on earth. We are the city on the hill. The radical left and the progressives want to sell socialism because they do not believe in the American people. It's time for us to take a stand, whether it's on The View or at the radical left party. It is time to take our message from sea to shining sea. When I pushed back on Joe Biden's socialism, they even called me the N-word. The ladies on The View, they tried to give me a yes. I like y'all. The ladies on The View, they tried to give me a lecture on race issues. I blew up their talking points. I shattered them all over the floor. It got so bad that they had a producer run on the stage to cut me off. Because conservatism, you got it, baby. Conservatism, it works. It works in the poorest zip codes and it works in the richest zip codes. It works for the black folks, but it works for the white folks. It works from the up and it works on the down. It works from the wrong side of the tracks and it works on the right side of the tracks. You see, what we believe in, it works everywhere across this great nation.
One viral tweet summed it up perfectly. Tim Scott went on The View and delivered a masterclass in composure and logic. The hosts, not so much. So, what's your take? Did Tim Scott expose The View's hypocrisy? Or do you think the hosts were justified in their criticism? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.